Majority Chelsea owner BehDADDY Eghbali is stepping in to get the Maxence Lacroix deal over the line. It's Tuesday, so the deal sheet is out, and there's some wild stuff to talk about today, starting with John Stones being a centre-back target. Young Como centre-back Jacobo Ramon is also still in Chelsea's sights. We're expecting the announcement of Valentin Barco to happen soon, but what's going on with Pedro? Pedro Neto is for sale, and it's not going to be cheap, but there are clubs interested. Chelsea have slapped a £65 million price tag on striker Nicholas Jackson. And the deal sheet gives us an updated list of the players that Chelsea are looking to get out on loan this season. Welcome, Blue Believers, to another episode of the Stamford Sync, where we are syncing up with everything Chelsea FC. And today, it's transfers in, transfers out. Oh, and it all feels possible after the Morgan Rogers deal, doesn't it? So let's have a look at what's going on. Pice posted this via Sammy Mockbell of the BBC. Breaking: Maxence Lacroix to Chelsea is now being handled at ownership level, with Palace seeking a minimum of £60 million. Latest discussions positive. So BehDADDY Eghbali is stepping in, getting deals done all over the shop, right? And there's a couple of interesting things about this in particular. We'll put Maxence Lacroix to one side just for a second and talk about the fact that BehDADDY Eghbali is stepping in to get these deals over the line. Obviously, the first one was Morgan Rogers. And that was a deal that was done owner to owner, and Chelsea and Aston Villa have a relationship. I've talked about it a few times before with relationships that we have with clubs, Crystal Palace being a big one, right? And Aston Villa clearly is another one. There's been deals, we've been talking to each other for a long time now about Morgan Rogers. They've been interested in Nicholas Jackson for a while. And obviously there was the whole thing with Ian Maatsen and Amari Kellyman that in itself just stank of, this helps us both with our books. Ian Maatsen didn't play a huge amount for Aston Villa, although they were interested in him. And Amari Kellyman has just spent a season on loan at a League One team, and we spent £20 million on him. So that transfer, those transfers weren't exactly really maybe Maatsen to Aston Villa, there was opportunity there for sure. They needed a left back. Obviously Luca Digne ended up sort of playing for them, but at the end of the day, especially from our perspective, we didn't need Amari Kellyman. We didn't need to spend £20 million on Amari Kellyman, who will be lucky this year if he gets a championship loan, and that is after being at the club for 2 seasons. So that deal was not a let's have Amari Kellyman. It was, look, you scratch our back, we'll scratch yours. They were interested in Ian Maatsen, which only really cost them £15 million when you think about the fact that we spent 20 mil on Amari Kellyman. Obviously that there's a thing there. There is some sort of history to denote that there is some sort of transfer relationship between the owners of Aston Villa and Chelsea. And then obviously you look at the fact that we were, that's what happened for Morgan Rogers. It went owner to owner, right? And potentially that looks like what's happening now. BehDADDY Eghbali is stepping in to try and push the Maxence Lacroix deal over the line. So this is interesting, largely for the same reason. Chelsea have a good relationship with Crystal Palace in terms of transfers. We've sold them loads of players. We were in front for the Elise deal at the end of the day. Before he went to Bayern Munich, it was it was looking very likely that he was going to come to Chelsea. The reason wasn't that we weren't willing to pay Crystal Palace the money that they wanted for him. It was very much that we just didn't want to pay him the wages because it would have broken our wage structure. He wanted a lot more money than the likes of Moises Caicedo, Enzo Fernandez, Cole Palmer. He wanted loads more money than those guys were on. Yes, it was a faux pas, obviously, because he's one of the best players in the world. But at the time, that was the reason that we didn't go through with it, was because we didn't want to break the wage structure. So, like I say, BehDADDY Eghbali stepping in to get the Maxence Lacroix deal over the line is really interesting. The main reason for me that it's interesting is look at the deals where, look, to be fair, the Marco Palestra deal, I don't think he was involved in that, but look at the other deals that we've left with the sporting directors to negotiate this season so far. Granit Xhaka and Pep Chavadia. We're going to get onto Pep Chavadia a little bit later, but these deals just aren't happening. And yes, it's about lowballing, all this, that, and the other, and obviously these are much higher value transfers, but is the trust of the owners and to the sporting directors starting to degrade? Because that's twice now with these big transfers that BehDADDY Eghbali hasn't trusted his own sporting directors, and this is their job. Their whole job is to identify and negotiate transfers. and he's not trusting these guys to come in and get it done and get it over the line. So I do think that's really interesting, especially when you consider the Dave Fallows effect that already seems to be kind of taking place. But yeah, like I say, with these big transfers, it seems like BehDADDY Eghbali is kind of overstepping everyone that in the 6-7 person team that he's hired in order to get them over the line and to have these conversations with the owners directly about the business and the money. And, you know, maybe that's part of it. Maybe that's part of it. I'm not sure, but I do think it's very interesting anyway. So a little bit more on Maxence Lacroix. Chelsea Hub posted this via the Cy Phillips Sport Sub Stack. Always trip over with that one, man. SPTC sources: Chelsea and Crystal Palace have made significant progress in talks for Maxence Lacroix. A deal worth between 52 million and 60 million pounds, including add-ons, has largely been agreed, with only final details left to resolve. The transfer is not done yet, but negotiations are expected to be completed this week. And there was another tweet included in that saying Chelsea are closing in on signing Maxence Lacroix. Negotiations with Crystal Palace are in the final stages. Personal terms have already been verbally agreed, and the defender is keen on the move. So I do a podcast with Jay from Talking Chelsea, and a couple of episodes back we were talking about Maxence Lacroix, and he said to me, how much do you think he's going to go for? And I was like, for me, it just screams 55 plus 5. And, you know, that is in and around, I guess, what we're looking at the moment. The 60, I can literally see it being almost exactly that, to be honest. 55 million up front for the player, 5 million add-ons. That just seems like the going rate. If you consider the market at the moment, Van Hecker went for 52 million with 1 year left on his deal. So although that doesn't seem as crazy as an Elliot Anderson going for 116 mil or whatever, when you think about it, really it kind of is. With Van Hecker only having 1 year left on his deal, that's a crazy amount of money. Do you know what I mean? A crazy amount of money. And Brighton were like, no, absolutely not. You pay this or we keep him and we lose him on a free. They were willing, but Tottenham was so desperate for him that that's what he went for. So Maxence Lacroix's got 3 years left on his deal. So when you adjust for the crazy nature of the market at the moment and the fact that Maxence Lacroix's got 3 years left on his deal, all of a sudden 60 mil doesn't even seem that bad. You know, when the stick to beat the centre-back market with at the moment is Jan-Paul Van Hecker. That is all, you know, all of the centre-back conversations that are being had at the moment are using him as the benchmark. 52 million pounds with 1 year left on his deal. So like I say, for me, if we can get this over the line for 55 plus 5, maybe include a loan for like a Mamadou Sarr or something like that. You know, they inquired about Trevor Chalobah, but the Como thing still seems pretty odd at the moment. 60 mil doesn't even seem that bad, to be completely honest. And with, of course, BehDADDY Eghbali stepping into this transfer, it's starting to feel like we could see it over the line pretty soon. And guys, if you've made it this far into today's episode of the Stamford Sync, please do me the distinct honour of liking and sharing the video, subscribe to the channel, or just roast me in the comments, whatever gets you through your day. Right, next up, we're going to carry on talking about centre-backs, and we're going to talk about John Stones. This one is wild. Direct from The Athletic that reposted from Simon Johnson's deal sheet, which comes out every Tuesday. Chelsea have added England international John Stones to the list of centre-backs they are considering signing this summer. Stones is available as a free agent after his contract expired at Manchester City. The 32-year-old impressed for England as they reached the World Cup semi-finals, playing in 5 of their 8 matches. Chelsea want to add more ready-made players to the squad and have shown by their pursuit of 34-year-old midfielder Granit Xhaka, a bid Sunderland rejected, that they are prepared to bring in older players. So, first and foremost, shout out to Kai from Behind the Dugouts for this one. We did a video, I think literally just before the window opened, and I asked him, 5 players in, 5 players out. 5 players you want to see get shipped out and 5 players you'd like to bring in to replace them with. I can't remember what centre-back he said he wanted out because there are so many. The likes of Fofana, Badiashile, Disasi, Tosin, all of them. But what I do specifically remember is he said, bring in John Stones. And it makes sense when you think about it. Now, with the Jacobo Ramon thing being spoke about as well, I would be a lot less happy with a John Stones and a Jacobo Ramon than I would just with a Maxence Lacroix, if that's what we're talking about. But if we're talking about getting Maxence Lacroix and John Stones, I think John Stones is the perfect backup for Levi Colwill, isn't he? Really, let's be completely honest. Like, not the absolute progenitor, but one of the best passing centre-backs in the Premier League. It was absolutely phenomenal under Pep. Can definitely be expected to play that role really, really, really well in a rotational fashion, right? You're not, you know, even at the World Cup, like, he 5 out of the 8 matches, you can't play John Stones every single game. That's absolutely fine. But if we've got a Levi Colwill who's fit for most of the season, but we still need to be careful with him and we can't just play him week after week after week after week, having a John Stones to back him up, personally, I think is a wicked idea. I'd love to see this. Now, do I think it's going to happen? Honestly, I don't know. John Stones, weirdly, really hot property. And I say weirdly, like, it's not that weird, but obviously he was barely played football last season. 19 matches across all competitions. And obviously not all of those were starts either, because he was injured a lot, right? So that is a worry in itself. But is this Thiago Silva 2.0? If we bring in John Stones at 32 years old, does he play with us until he's like 36 and just be that stalwart in defence that we absolutely need? Although, albeit I wouldn't expect him to play as much as Thiago Silva did, to be honest. But I like the idea of it. If our centre-back situation next season is looking like a starting pair of Levi Colwill and Maxence Lacroix, with the likes of Jacobo Ramon, John Stones, still potentially Josh Achiampong as backups, like that really means then we have to shift or almost all of the centre-backs that are on our books at the moment. The likes of, there's no like, oh, maybe we keep one or two of Badiashile or Disasi. I still think Tosin's going to stick around, to be honest. But if we get a John Stones, do you even need a Tosin at that point? Because some people are starting to come out saying that they are interested in Tosin. So, for instance, Badiashile also had a loan offer from Napoli recently, which is really good news, by the way. Even though it was a loan offer, it shows you that a team of Napoli stature is interested in Badiashile. So, look, chances are we can start actually shipping out some of these centre-backs. But like I say, if you get a John Stones, do you need a Tosin Adarabioyo anymore? Well, I don't really know. And, he's a free, we got him on a free transfer. Still got a few years left on his deal, 10, 15 mil. Cheeky on the books, thank you very much. Guys, let me know what you think about John Stones. This one kind of really threw me, to be honest, because it's just come out in the deal sheet today, but it's potentially another one of those things to say that Chelsea are doing their business really, really under the radar, and I love that. I absolutely love that. Makes it difficult as a content creator because, I'm still finding stuff to talk about. It's fine, but compared to season past, there's nowhere near as much to talk about as there has been. But at the same time, if you look at how the Morgan Rogers deal just bam, landed, there it is. Same with Marco Palestra. The Maxence Lacroix thing has been going on for a little while, but, maybe this John Stones thing. Now, the other thing with John Stones in particular is there are other teams that are in for him. Arsenal were interested. Everton have been talking to him for a little while. Obviously, that was his former club. So it's really going to be for John Stones to decide what kind of move does he want to make. Does he want one, like, you go to an Everton and you play a lot, do you know what I mean? You definitely play a lot and you get really relied on. You've got all those winning credentials. And did he play under David Moyes before? I'm not 100% sure because he was really young then. Obviously, he was in his early 20s, but I think he was probably there at the club when David Moyes was there, so there might be some sort of familial connection between the two. But Arsenal obviously need to get some sort of covering for Saliba, who's going to be injured for a little while. So, I don't want to fight for John Stones as much. Like, I think it's very much just like John Stones is going to be like, I want to go to this club. Or maybe he sees himself having that kind of Thiago Silva style move and that style role where, there's maybe potential to win stuff and to do well with a young team that can really make use of his leadership, his ability, his experience, his winning mentality. Look, it just as a transfer, I ship it. Like, I love the idea of, and for similar reasons why I like Granit Xhaka as well. Like, I like the idea of adding a few more of these experienced players into the squad. I like that Xabi Alonso has come in and obviously said to Blueco, you cannot do this with kids. Like, you can push the majority of it forward with kids, but you can't just do it with kids. You need some guys that have been around the game for a little while to temper egos in the dressing room, to be leaders on the pitch, off the field. And look, Pep Travadia, Granit Xhaka, John Stones, like these kind of players that we're looking at, and we're looking at John Stones as well, but they all prove that Xabi Alonso has come in and reinforced it, that look, you can have kids and the ability and the skill, and obviously we've seen it, like some of our kids have been phenomenal, but you need some of these experienced players in the dressing room to back them all up. So next up, Chelsea Dodgers posted this via Simon Johnson's part of the deal sheet. Como's Jacobo Ramon is still among the contenders at Chelsea. I like the look of Jacobo Ramon as a young centre-back, fair enough, but it's hard to get excited about him when we've got Mohamed Issa, Josh Achiampong, and we've still got the likes of Badiashile, Tosin, Disasi, all of these, Fofana, like we're not even talking about Fofana, but we've still got all of these other guys on the books at the moment. Maxence Lacroix comes in, upgrades the team instantly, so we, it seems reasonable to kind of push for him. If we get Jacobo Ramon at the moment, and then we've got, how many centre-backs do we have on our books at that point? Because, okay, the Aaron Anselmino, Mohamed Issa, Axel Disasi, Tosin Adarabioyo, Wesley Fofana, Benoit Badiashile, I've missed someone, Levi Colwill, so that's 7, and if we get, so it's 8. If we don't sell anyone soon, and we go for Jacobo Ramon, it's 8 centre-backs on the books, man, and it's just wild. One of the big issues we had last season was the myriad amount of centre-back pairings that we had, and we need a consistent pairing this time. So look, the bomb squad's just going to be full of centre-backs next season, isn't it? If we don't start shipping them out soon. But let me know what you think about Jacobo Ramon. If we manage to sell 3 of our centre-backs, then maybe that's okay, and that would make sense to me for us to go in for him. And if we do go in for a young centre-back, is this the kind of guy that we should be going for? So what's going on with Pep Javadia and Valentin Barco, 2 players that one we know is coming to Chelsea sort of, and one is being discussed and talked about, but the negotiations are getting a little bit crazy. So let's hop back over to the deal sheet and see what I had to say. Talks with Rayo Vallecano over left-back Pep Javadia's fee are ongoing, while Chelsea are close to confirming that Valentin Barco is joining from Strasbourg. Barco has been away with Argentina at the World Cup. The midfielder announced he was leaving Strasbourg at the end of last season, and sources in France have told The Athletic he's heading to Stamford Bridge. So Pep Javadia, let's start with him. I'm just getting this feeling it's not going to happen, you know. Rayo Vallecano are being absolutely... It is nonsense. It's just pure nonsense. Like, they encouraged us at 12 to 15 mil, and they, you know, because that's what happens, isn't it? You like sound out. This is, for instance, similar to what happened with Arsenal and Morgan Rogers. Mikel Arteta spoke to Morgan Rogers. The Arsenals have been talking to Morgan Rogers' representatives for ages. There's been some contact with Aston Villa, and they were encouraged to think that a conversation could be had in and around 90 to 100 mil. Obviously, things have changed. We were essentially invited to enter the negotiations at 12 to 15 mil. We go in, and mid-conversation, Rayo Vallecano for Pep Javadia say, actually, no, we said that you can maybe 12 to 15 mil, but actually we want 20. 21.3, I think it was. All right, okay, that's overpaying a little bit, but Xabi wants the guy. We need the profile of player in the squad. All right, okay, let's have this conversation about the 20 mil. Okay, we want to have the conversation about the 20 mil. Well, actually, that's just doubled, and now it's like 41.42 mil. And it's like, no, it's just silly at this point, isn't it? So for us to even still be having the conversation, and for that, you know, to be the ongoing talks about the fee, surely it's only going to be for that 21 mil. That middle ground, do you know what I mean? And maybe they've just slapped the 42 on to try and squeeze an extra million or something. One of you guys in my comments put a little while ago, last time I spoke about this, the most that Rayo Vallecano have ever sold a player for is like 10 mil. They spent the majority of the last decade in the second tier of Spanish football. So this would by far, at 40 mil, represent the biggest transfer that they've ever made. But obviously it's just too much, isn't it? So that's all a little bit wild in itself. Valentin Barco, the discussions have been weird, right? And obviously he's been at the World Cup, and, you know, he wasn't going to get announced while he was at the World Cup. But the weird thing about the reason that Chelsea haven't already acknowledged the fact that he is a new Chelsea player is the Here We Go came 2-3 months ago now, something like that. It was April, May, that, you know, this when this thing started kicking off. So it's weird that there was so long before the World Cup after he was signed, and Chelsea didn't kind of recognise it at that point, because when we did this with Emmanuel Omega, it was announced and acknowledged from the Chelsea side. When we did this with Giovanni Kenda, it was announced and acknowledged from the Chelsea side. Despite there being so long in front, he was going to come. So thought that was a little bit weird, but it sounds like he's going to be announced soon. He's been called a midfielder here. I mean, I guess that doesn't really matter at the end of the day, because he is a versatile player. He could be a rotational option to play in the midfield, left wing back, even in the half space, you know, to bring on into games when you need a bit of energy and stuff as well. Not ideal, because he's not an attacking player, but he is creative. He's got bundles of energy. I have a feeling that Valentin Barco, and I've said this in one of my hot takes, and I've been kind of spot on with one of my hot takes recently, so maybe I'm right about this too. I have a feeling that Xabi Alonso will like Valentin Barco. I think he'll get a lot of minutes. I don't think he'll always be in the first team, but I think he is one of your go-tos for injury cover, for bringing on at the end of a game for some energy, and he will get some starts in other competitions as well. So I think I've got this feeling that Valentin Barco doesn't storm into the first team, but I do think that he will get a substantial amount of minutes at Chelsea. We've still got 3 competitions to play at the end of the day, and the profile of the player that he is, and, you know, if he is... He obviously he's played well in different positions, and if he finds it easy to adapt to different situations, then I think Xabi Alonso will definitely have a use for that. Right, so that's some talk about some of the players that we want to see in, but let's start talking about some of the outs, and we're going to start with Pedro Neto. We're back to the Cy Phillips sub sport stack, and Chelsea Hub reposted this. Pedro Neto's future is one to watch. Chelsea are open to selling, and the winger is open to a new challenge, with interest from Tottenham, Liverpool, Juventus, Arsenal, and clubs in Saudi Arabia. So, to be honest, like, I've been doing, you know, it's been like well over a month now, like over a month and a half that we've been talking about transfer stuff. We've still got a whole month to go as well. Pedro Neto has just kind of not been talked about at all by, well, I say at all. There was one link a little while ago saying that Liverpool were interested in him. That's been backed up by this. And loads of you have had a lot to say about him in the comments. It's really interesting because if you think about the kind of team that we're going to be, Pedro Neto's qualities make him seem really well suited to a wing-back option, right? But does he want that? Now, this is the big question here, because I'm sure if Pedro Neto was like, I will be your left wing back, then I'm sure that this wouldn't even be a thing. If it says he's open to a new challenge, it's evident. If you look at the players that we're going to have in the, like, imagine, I do think it's going to be this kind of 3-4-2-1, sorry. You don't have a winger like that. You have your wing backs that cover all of the athletic side of it and the width and the pace and the speed and the burst of energy and stuff. And then your half space players are the likes of Morgan Rogers. They're the likes of Cole Palmer. They're the likes of Esteban Willian. Pedro Neto is a winger. And I know that he has performed well once in the 10 and he got a hat-trick against like a quite low-level team, wasn't it? But it's not really his thing, is it? It's not really his thing. Now, Xabi Alonso, I'm sure, would have looked at Pedro Neto and been like, you'd be a great wing-back. Let's get you as a wing-back. But I really think this is the thing you need to consider, that, you know, Giovanni Kenda's come in and been like, I just want to help the team, I'll do anything for the team. The wing-back positions, if we play them, and I think we are, because we bought Marco Palestra, and that's kind of what he does, they're really attacking spots, right? And I think Pedro Neto would be really good there, but honestly, what I think it is he probably just doesn't want to do that. Do you know what I mean? You know, for instance, I see him suiting Andoni Iraola's basketball, football, 4-2-3-1 on that right wing, load of pace, load of energy. I see him suiting that really, really well. The interesting thing about it will be when you consider the fact that Anthony Gordon got 7 or 8 GA last season and has gone to Barcelona for £70 million. Pedro Neto, I think it was over 10. It was like 11, 12 GA throughout the season, maybe even a little bit more than that. I'd need to look it up to be sure. But at the same time, it's another one of those things in the market, like, it's 60, 70 mil. Easy 60, 70 mil for Pedro Neto. I think it's weird that it's been quiet with Pedro Neto recently, but this is a massive indication. You look at that massive list of clubs that are in for him. Tottenham, they were in for Savinho recently, and I can see him also fitting quite well in De Zerbi's type of football. Liverpool, like I said. Juventus, I don't know so much about. Arsenal, that'd be jokes. It'd be so funny if Arsenal end up giving us 60, 70 mil for Pedro Neto when they just bought Madueke for 50 mil and they've still already got Bukayo Saka. Unless they really want a left-footed left winger because they just want to hoof crosses into the box all season long, and I wouldn't be surprised. Arsenal would be really funny. Saudi Arabian clubs, look, they'll pay the money. At the end of the day, they'll pay the money, but you would have thought at this point in his career, like he plays for Portugal and, obviously was in the Champions League with Chelsea last season. He's won some trophies and that recently. Like, his stock is reasonably high. As a Chelsea fan, we know that he can be frustrating to watch for sure. But at the end of the day, the underlying statistics, he had a relatively good season for a right winger last season, albeit he was frustrating to watch at times. And yeah, it just seems like with this coming out, Chelsea are open to selling and he's up for a new challenge. Those are basically the two things together that says if anyone comes in with a reasonable amount of money, we'll sell him. And based on the market that we're looking at this season, it's going to be 60, 70 mil. So look, that's wild, isn't it? Like 3 of our first teamers in Enzo Fernandez, Malo Gusto and Pedro Neto, like we could be looking at 250 mil-ish for those 3 players if we manage to sell them in a window that we're looking to make 300 mil. So look, I like Pedro Neto, but I'm not like, oh no, we desperately need to keep him. Some of you guys will 100% be like that. And like I said, I mentioned it before, he seems like a really good player profile for that wing-back spot. Like, I don't disagree with that at all. But the question for me is that what he wants, or does he want to be a winger, like more of an archetypal winger in a team that wants to play him as an archetypal winger? And I think if the right team comes along with that project, with the money, I think he'll go, no questions asked. So talking about crazy money for players, let's talk about Nicholas Jackson. Chelsea Dodgers reposted this via Simon Johnson. This is also from the deal sheet. Chelsea wants £65 million for Nicholas Jackson. João Pedro is the first choice up front, and Rogers is earmarked to play in an attacking role on the left. Should he want to leave and a club meets the asking price, Chelsea will not stand in his way. So, this is the market, man. The market's just gone wild, isn't it? I thought we'd struggle to get 50 for Nicholas Jackson based on him not playing that much at Bayern Munich. But he's still, is he 25 now, I guess? He did play, when he played reasonably well for Bayern Munich. He did play well for Chelsea in the grand scheme of things. He's got 30 GA, more than that, more 30, 40 GA in the 2 seasons that he played for us, which is, you know, respectable for a player who still has potential. He is versatile, all this, that, and the other. So I saw something, I'm not sure how true it is, that supposedly what we do know is that he was one of the players that was discussed with Aston Villa, and, you know, for the Morgan Rogers thing. And we know that Aston Villa are interested because that dates back all the way to last summer. Supposedly, and I'm not sure how true this is, but I saw something else saying Nicholas Jackson has turned down the opportunity to join Aston Villa and wants to stay and fight for his place at Chelsea. If that's true, I respect the hustle. But if that is the case, after buying Morgan Rogers, you're 100% the backup option. Like, I made a wild shout about Nicholas Jackson starting, and it was like with João Pedro and Cole Palmer in that, you know, that kind of front three with the 3-4-2-1. But if Morgan Rogers is here now, like, Nicholas Jackson makes way, João Pedro plays up top. It's barely even a question anymore, is it? You know, Esteval Willian is already looking at missing out in that respect if Cole Palmer kicks on underneath Xabi Alonso, and Nicholas Jackson will be relegated to a rotational option. He said a little while ago that he wants to say if he's given genuine opportunity to get minutes, maybe you will be given genuine, but who'd you get in over at the point? Because these are three potentially, like, Cole Palmer's not been brilliant recently, but Morgan Rogers, one of the best players in his position in the league last season. João Pedro, one of the best players in the league in his position last season. Cole Palmer, one of the best players in the league in his position at his best, and he's been injured for like the last season and a half, hasn't he? So hopefully he gets back to that after having a break. But Nicholas Jackson is really going to struggle to get into that, isn't he? You think about, like, he went, to be fair, he went to Bayern Munich thinking he might have a chance of getting 42 matches, despite there being a Harry Kane there and Jamal Musiala and, you know, Luis Diaz, who was absolutely phenomenal for them last season as well. But all of a sudden, the Morgan Rogers signing really puts the future of Nicholas Jackson in doubt. I imagine at least this one now, I can see him trying to get a few games in pre-season, trying to impress the manager, and if he doesn't do it quickly, I think he's probably going to be out. 65 million plus the, 13 million loan fee we got from Bayern Munich last season as well. That puts it at 78 million pounds we will have made in total for Nicholas Jackson after buying him for 30, which will now only be worth like 20 odd. So we're looking at making 50 mil profit on Nicholas Jackson if we sell him. This market's wild, man. And finally, we're going to take a little look at the loan sale list that was put on the Athletics deal sheet posted by Chelsea Dodgers. Loan sale list of other Chelsea players: Benoit Badiashile, sale; Axel Disasi, sale; Gabriel Slonina, sale; Philip Jorgensen, sale; David Datro Fofana, sale; Kendry Paez, loan; Mamadou Sarr, loan; Omari Kellyman, loan; David Washington, loan; Caleb Wiley, loan; Shim Mayuka, loan; and Aaron Anselmino, undecided. That's the list, but let's go through them one by one and see what we think. Benoit Badiashile, sale. So apparently we've already turned down the loan offer from Napoli because we want a permanent deal. And look, regardless, two clubs now actually, because Lens were credited with some interest not so long ago. He's not going to be expensive, man. We're not going to be asking for huge money for Benoit Badiashile. So yes, absolutely love that. Axel Disasi, sale, obviously needs to go. Absolutely needs to go. We can't be having more bomb squad players. It's just too much at this point. He needs to go, and, you know, again, it won't be very much money. Gabriel Slonina has now changed to sale, which is interesting because he's just had a trial at Strasbourg. I don't know how that's gone yet. But I imagine that evidently they Strasbourg have fed back on his trial there, and one way or the other they've been like, right, okay, we're not, because before, like a week ago, it was loan or sale. Now it's sale. So he's obviously either done so well on his trial at Strasbourg that they're going to sell him to him, or he's done so badly on his trial that they're like, we just need to get rid of this guy. Philip Jorgensen, sale, 100% makes sense. Like, I actually genuinely feel bad for him, even though he's been horrible for us. It's not really his fault because he's played 20 games in 2 seasons. Like, just over 20 games in 2 seasons. As a young goalkeeper, that's awful. David Datro Fofana, sale, yeah, of course, like another bomb squad player that just needs to go. Kendry Paez, loan, I get it. He's had his recent loan terminated at River Plate. We need to find the right manager for him. I don't know what's going on with him, but we need to find the right manager that can stroke his ego and get the best out of the phenomenal talent that he has, but also knock him down a peg because his ego is his problem at the moment. Like, his attitude stinks, apparently. That's why his loan is literally being cancelled by River Plate. They're like, no, we don't want this kid around. And he obviously struggled to get into the Strasbourg first team as well. So, look, he's so young. He's still 18, 19, same age as Eghbali William. So much potential there. But you just need someone to be like, bro, what's going on, man? Stop it with the attitude. Just get your head down and be good at football. Mamadou Sarr, loan. This is an interesting one. Apparently, Chelsea won't be disappointed if we do end up keeping him, but they want to get him a Premier League loan. That makes sense to me because we know he plays well in Europe, right? And look, I know France aren't the Spain. Is it Spain then France? Is it then? No, Spain, Italy, France. Surely, France are in the top 5 of the European leagues. But at the same time, we need to see if he can play in the Premier League for the physicality and stuff as a centre-back, because he's very good at passing, very good technical player, but can he deal with the rough and the tumble? So, I'd be interested to see if I maybe get him on a loan to a promoted team, Ipswich, Coventry, something like that. Do you know what I mean? It'd be interesting. Omari Kellyman, loan. Yeah, fair enough, I guess, because we paid 20 mil for him, and no one's going to pay 20 mil for him. David Washington, only a loan. I do find that interesting, because we spent 70 mil on David Washington. Maybe that's the kind of thing, actually, like with these players that we spent big money on, like Omari Kellyman and David Washington, £37 million for the two of them. That's nuts, isn't it? Absolutely nuts. But selling them at the moment is just hemorrhaging money, isn't it? So you desperately get them out on loan and hope that they can improve. Caleb Wiley loan makes sense because of the injury thing as well. I think it was only like 8 to 12 million or something for Caleb Wiley, so not quite as much as an outlay as the likes of Kellyman and Washington, but at the same time, his season at Watford was just cut short by injury, so we need to see if he can play football. Shin Mayuka, loan. That one actually makes sense just because he's too good for the academy, and we need to get him in a competitive team trying to get into a first team. And then Aaron Anselmino, undecided. So this is really interesting. Aaron Anselmino is obviously a good centre-back, because when he made his move to Dortmund, played on loan at Dortmund, they loved him, spent the majority of it injured. And it was all really weird, because there was a recall clause in Aaron Anselmino's contract if he didn't get enough minutes. Dortmund wanted to keep him and he wanted to stay at Dortmund, but we activated that clause, but it kind of wasn't really fair, because if you think about it, normally if he doesn't get enough minutes means because he's not being chosen enough, but that wasn't the issue at all. He was injured, that's why he didn't get enough minutes. So clearly there's a good player there, but he went to Strasbourg and got injured again as well. Do you know what I mean? So undecided from loan or sell, but he's on this list. So what that tells you is he's got no chance in the first team, I wouldn't have thought. If Borussia Dortmund come in and are like, we'll give you 20 mil for him, yeah, sweet, something like that will probably happen. Or maybe even Borussia Dortmund come back and get him on loan again to give him another shot. But he is just going to be a player that is going to be improved and sold, I think. So yeah, a bit of a weird one there. And guys, that's it. I'm going to start wrapping the video up there, but I want to know what you think about everything that we've talked about today. BehDADDY is doing the deal for Maxence Lacroix to hopefully get it over the line quickly. Do you think 55 plus 5 or 60 mil, like let's call it a max of 60 mil, do you think that's too much? Personally, like I said, with the Van Hecker stuff, I just think that's a decent amount to pay for a Premier League centre-back with good experience at the moment. John Stones is being targeted. That's absolutely nuts. It's so weird. But I ship it. I rate it, to be completely honest. I want experience in the team. John Stones is not only an experienced player, he's a Premier League winner. He's a Champions League winner. It feels like another version of the Thiago Silva deal to me. And I think that he would be really good to have around the squad. I think he played really well. I also think the profile of the kind of player that he is makes sense to be a backup to Levi Colwill. So yeah, for me that makes sense. But what do you think about it? Jacobo Ramon is still being targeted. Like I say, I don't really see that happening unless we do manage to get rid of at least 2 or 3 of the centre backs that we've got first. Pep Chivadia deal is still ongoing, but I think we'll probably just walk away from it at this point, won't we? Unless, the 20 mil-ish price, unless that is it. And also, it looks like we can expect to see the signing announcement of Valentin Barco soon. Pedro Neto up for sale. Loads of club interested. Tottenham, Liverpool, Juventus, Arsenal, and clubs in Saudi Arabia. I think it'd be 60, 70 mil, to be completely honest. What do you think? Do you think that we desperately need to keep him, or do you think, as I do, that if he's not willing to play wing back, then the best thing probably is just to move him on? Nicholas Jackson for £65 million, which would total like £78 million if we managed to get that for him. I do genuinely think that the Rodgers buy has severely limited his opportunities to get into the first team on a regular basis. Tell me what you think. And the loan sale list is massive now. Benoit Badiashile, Axel Disasi, Gabriel Slanina, Philip Jorgensen, David Datro Fofana, Kendry Paez, Mamadou Sarr, Omari Kellyman, David Washington, Caleb Wiley, Shim Mayuka, and Aaron Anselmino. If we can get rid of all of those players and sell the first 5, that looks like a good window. Nice one, guys. This has been an absolutely massive video. There's so much going on at the moment. I hope you're all having an absolutely wicked day, and I'll catch up with you very, very soon. Take it easy. Peace.